Charles Schulz spent 50 years drawing peanuts, becoming the world's most famous cartoonist, earning millions. But in December 1999, everything changed with one phone call. Crying in his studio, Charles told his family, "It's over." He'd kept a devastating secret. His hands were shaking, his vision failing, and doctors had given him terrible news. This moment would end Peanuts forever and shock millions of fans who had no idea what was coming. Charles Monroe Schulz was born on November 26, 1922 in Minneapolis. His parents, Carl and Dina, struggled financially, and the family moved to Needles, California during the Great Depression. These hardships shaped Charles's view of the world and influenced his character's anxieties. At 2 days old, his uncle nicknamed him Sparky, after a cartoon horse. As a child, he witnessed his parents' struggles, which later appeared in his work, especially Charlie Brown's fears of losing everything. In 1937, Charles gained recognition when his dog Spike was featured in Ripley's Believe It or Not. Spike's death at age 10 profoundly affected him, inspiring characters like Snoopy. Despite his mother's support, his father dismissed his artistic ambitions, creating family tension. After his mother's death from cancer when Charles was 20, he channeled his grief into his drawings. Struggling in school and facing rejection, he began drawing to comfort his sick mother. After her death in 1943, he enrolled in an art course, marking the start of his career. In WSU, he served as a staff sergeant, witnessing the horrors of Dachau. Despite his role, he only fired his weapon once and received the Combat Infantryman badge. Returning home in late 1945, Charles struggled with grief and trauma. He moved back into his childhood apartment, considering suicide, but instead threw himself into drawing. In 1946, he took a low-paying job grading art, where he met co-workers who later inspired Peanuts characters, including Donna Mae Johnson, the red-haired woman he had once loved. In 1950, just before Peanuts launched, Charles proposed to Donna, but she was already engaged. This heartbreak inspired the character of the little red-haired girl who never loved Charlie Brown. Charles's first comic strip, Leal Folks, debuted in 1947. It ran for a couple of years, but after an editor rejected his request to move it to the comics page, Charles quit. He was just 24, living above his father's barbershop, trying to make it as a cartoonist. In 1950, he repitched the idea to United Feature Syndicate, who renamed it Peanuts, a title Schulz hated. He called it the worst name ever and despised it for the rest of his life. Despite his protests, the name stuck. The first Peanuts strip ran on October 2, 1950 in just 7 newspapers. Charles made only $90 in the first month, so he took side jobs, including lettering gravestones. The first strip introduced Charlie Brown with a dark twist, Shermy calling him good old Charlie Brown, only to later say, "I hate him." That feeling of rejection, something Schulz knew all too well, was already present. By 1952, Peanuts expanded to 40 newspapers, and Schulz introduced Linus Van Pelt. Initially as a baby, Linus became the voice of reason in the strip, and in the late 1950s, he quoted Bible verses. Some editors pushed back, and a Christmas strip in 1961 nearly got the comic canceled. Schulz had to compromise, using faith without making it the center of the strip to avoid losing everything. On April 18, 1951, Charles married Joyce Halverson, who had a young daughter, Meredith, whom he adopted. The couple eventually had 4 more children, but times were tough. At one point, Charles had to pawn his drawing tools to pay the bills. Even then, he vowed never to compromise his artistic style. Snoopy's evolution was a game changer. Initially a regular dog, on January 9, 1956, Snoopy stood on 2 legs for the first time, something Schulz hadn't planned. By 1957, Snoopy was walking upright all the time, becoming the World War I flying ace, Joe Cool, and much more. He went from just a pet to a global icon, recognizable alongside figures like Coca-Cola and Mickey Mouse. Linus's security blanket also debuted in 1952, inspired by his daughter's favorite toy. Though Schulz never called it a security blanket, readers did. At the same time, the term transitional object was coined by a psychologist perfectly capturing the essence of the blanket. The debate over Linus's security blanket sparked fierce arguments. Some experts claimed it was unhealthy, while parents sent angry letters. But research showed that nearly 70% of kids had emotional attachments to toys or blankets, making the controversy even more intense. Linus, the wisest character, was also the most emotionally attached, which shocked many readers. By 1955, Peanuts appeared in over 100 newspapers, and Lucy's famous psychiatric booth debuted. It looked like a lemonade stand, but offered therapy for 5 cents. Schulz drew from his own post-2002 therapy sessions to create it. The strip began tackling serious issues like responsibility and anxiety, surprising parents but resonating with kids. By 1958, Peanuts was in 355 U.S. newspapers and 40 internationally. Some therapists even used Lucy's advice as a teaching tool. When the Soviet Union launched Sputnik in 1957, Schulz quickly incorporated it into Peanuts. Snoopy was even adopted as NASA's safety mascot. In 1968, just 11 days after Dr. Martin Luther King Jr.'s assassination, Charles Schulz introduced Franklin Armstrong, the first black character in Peanuts, despite pushback from Southern editors. He refused to erase Franklin, even stating he would quit rather than do so. As Peanuts grew, so did Schulz's financial success. By 1952, he bought a $35,000 home from his $30,000 cartooning income. Merchandise exploded. Happiness is a Warm Puppy stayed on the bestseller list for 45 weeks, and by the 1990s, Peanuts merchandise grossed over $1 billion annually. In 1965, A Charlie Brown Christmas aired, despite CBS's initial doubts. The special became a massive success, winning an Emmy and a Peabody Award, earning Schulz over $50 million in the long run. By 1970, Peanuts was in 1,000 newspapers, and Schulz was making $1 million annually. However, success came with personal challenges. Accusations of copying ideas from other comics haunted Schulz, leading to lifelong anxiety. In the mid-1970s, the pressure of drawing 17,197 strips alone nearly ruined his health, forcing him to be hospitalized for exhaustion. Schulz fiercely protected his creations, refusing to alter Peanuts for international markets, even if it cost him millions. In 1990, he admitted that Charlie Brown reflected his own struggles with depression and loneliness, stemming from personal heartbreak and his lifelong battle with self-doubt. Schulz's perfectionism led to major conflicts. In 1966, he nearly halted It's the Great Pumpkin, Charlie Brown, over disagreements with the animation team. When the syndicate pushed him to modernize Peanuts, Schulz demanded full control of his strip, and when they secretly brought in a backup artist, he used the betrayal to secure a powerful contract, ensuring his sole control over the strip. In the 1980s, Schulz fought lawsuits over Woodstock, Snoopy's Bird, and won. After heart surgery in 1981, fake Peanuts strips surfaced, leading to FBI arrests. By 1995, Peanuts dropped in newspapers and Schulz's health worsened. In 1997, he considered retirement, but in 1998, he secured a deal to ensure only he would draw Peanuts. In 1999, after being diagnosed with colon cancer, Schulz retired. His final Peanuts strip, published after his death, was a farewell to readers. Schulz passed away on February 12, 2000. At the time, Peanuts reached 355 million people daily. A controversial biography in 2007 was refuted by his family. The Charles Schulz Museum opened in 2002, honoring his legacy, as his work continued to bring joy to millions. Make sure to hit that subscribe button and turn on the notifications so you never miss an update. Also, drop a comment below